Alhagie, first of all, thank you very much for receiving us as you did and for accepting this interview because it's very important to us to have you in our documentary. If you want, start. Okay. My first question is how Alhagie's life started. I want to know about how your parents were, how's the first days.
Oh, thank you very much, Mario. I'm very happy to be part of this interview. It's an honor for me. I started in Basori here. I was born in 1967. My father is from Mauritania, actually, not a Gambian. He's a businessman, but my mom is a Gambian. I was born in a family of business people, and we are Muslims too. My father doesn't even like to send his children to school. But I'm fortunate. My father sent me first in 1972 to a tiny village out here in behind Basori, around 5 to 8 kilometers away from Basori. And that's where I started my education, in a place called Duasu. I was learning Quran there until 1970, from 1972 to 1980. In 1981, when I came back, somebody convinced my father to send me to school, to a Western educated school. That was in Brikama. I was then 16 years old. In Brikama, I started at grade 1. Grade 1, then they used to call it primary 1. And I started school in grade 1, the first term. There are 3 terms in the year. The first term, after 3 months after the exam, I took first position in the class. Then I was promoted from grade 1 to grade 3. I never do the grade 2. And from grade 3, when I was in grade 3, in the second term, the first year, grade 1, 3 months after that, I took first position. I was moved to grade 3. And in grade 3 also, I took first position also. Then I was moved to grade 5. So I never did grade 2. I never did grade 4. Those 2, I jumped them. And from there, I did the final exam in grade 5. At the end of the year, then I got 3rd position. Then I moved to grade 6. So in 1 year, I moved from grade 1 to grade 5. So my education was very fast. The first time, then in those days, we used to have a common entrance system where you pass to high school if you pass the exam. Then I did the exam and then was able to pass to high school. I went to Muslim high school. Then at Muslim high school, after 5 years of education, I was able to get through my exam. I got 7 credits of my subject. All my subject that I did, I got credits. Then I was supposed to go to Form 6. But because my father did not have money to pay for my school, I left the school to go and find a job. Then I started a nursery school in Basori here. In 1990, that's when I left my school. And then I started a nursery school here as a volunteer. And in 1990, in June, we started operation. I worked here up to 1 year. Then I moved back to Brikama, where I went to study at the Gambia College to become a qualified teacher.
Okay. Before to move on,
Yeah.
I have little questions to ask you about. You told that a man, or different for your father, helps you or believes in you in a moment to start your studies because your father wasn't too
Interested, yeah.
Who is that person? And
That person, the person who encouraged my father to send me to school was a friend of his who used to come because he had a shop where I used to sit with him, recite the Quran. And the way I was reciting the Quran was so eloquent that this man wanted me to be part of school because he thought that I'm very intelligent, I should be able to learn in the school system and get good results. So he convinced my father, and my father accepted, and eventually I was lucky to be enrolled in Brikama Primary School in 1981.
And how can a Gambian family without many resources, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, achieve to his young boy access to a high level education? How was the process? Because I don't know if it's very expensive, or I don't know how it is.
Exactly. It was a big challenge. Even for me, my high school was a very, very big challenge because by the time I finished my school, I had a lot of arrears in school fees. I couldn't pay my school fees. So when I finished my education, I was not given my results because I have to pay a lot of money, like $450 in those days. $450 was the arrears I owed the school. I have to pay that before I get my papers. So it was very difficult for me. I left school, I had to go and struggle. There was a volunteer, a Korean missionary I went to see, and I asked him to help me, and he was the one who paid my school fees, arrears, and then I got my papers. That's how I was able to go out and start looking for a job.
And which was your first job?
My first year?
Your first job?
The first job here was a volunteer. I was a teacher in the nursery school. And now when I left the nursery school, before I went to the college to go and get training for HTC, Higher Teacher Certificate Program, I was an unqualified teacher, teaching in a secondary school as unqualified teacher. In the Gambia here, if you leave school, before you go to college to get your professional training, you can start teaching as a non-trained teacher, an untrained teacher. That's how I started. So my first job was a teacher, and I had always been a teacher since then.
And I know, because Anna told me that you went to the United States to continue to work. How it begins, the idea of going to the USA?
Okay, I was very lucky because my results at school were always brilliant. So the first time when I finished work, I went to college, and then at the college, I was able to get very good results, and then I was teaching. After teaching for about 3 years, I get a confirmation that I'm now qualified teacher accepted by the government and confirmed, given confirmation later. And with that, there was a university program that started in the Gambia when the change of government from the previous government to the military government came. They started a university program. They call it University Extension Program. That's where I was enrolled. I did my bachelor's degree, bachelor's degree in history and French. Major in history, minor in French. And when I finished that bachelor's degree, I had a contact with one of the professors who was teaching me during that time, who was very much interested in me, who suggested to me that he is teaching at a university called University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania in the United States of America, that he wanted to help me to get enrollment there through a scholarship to go and study there. So my degree that I wanted to go and study was public administration, Masters in Public Administration, called MPA, at a very prestigious university in Pennsylvania called Gaspier. That is Graduate School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. That's where I went to study for a master's degree. So during the time there, I had a problem to continue my studies. That is what led me to stay into America up to 7 years, because the scholarship I had was a partial scholarship, and it couldn't cover everything. I had to go to work. I work in America, and I earned money to pay my school fees, to send money back home to my family, and so on. So that's what actually definitely gave me a problem. So my grades were not as good as to help me to continue to get sponsorship from the university. So they terminated my scholarship, and I had to struggle to pay for myself. That's what took me up to 7 years to study in America. A lot of experience in America. I worked there in warehouses, I worked in restaurants, and then I was also a volunteer teaching foreign migrants into America, teaching them English language. I was a volunteer tutor for Pittsburgh Education Literacy Academy in Pennsylvania. So that's where I had a lot of experience with a lot of people, Arabs and foreigners from Mexico and other places. Yes.
How can a young boy like you at this age, how manage this opportunity to go to United States, and how did you feel? Because I think for a Gambian boy that never go away from Africa.
Exactly, yeah. For me, my goal in life is to get educated and also help the people in my community to advance. That was the biggest thing in my mind all the time. And so the hope I had was to go outside, get experience, get education, and then come back to my community to help them. My vision was not to go out and amass money. No, money was very good as far as I'm concerned. I like money, but most important for me is to come and help my community to develop.
You never think once you are in, or you was in United States, to live there? Never?
I never wanted to live there permanently. I went there for experience and for education. And my final vision was to come back to my people to help them. That's why when the time came, I decided to come on my own back home to settle with my people. I have my house within them, and then try to see whatever opportunity I can grab to help my community to develop.
That's great. I'm honored with you. How your father reacts to this decision?
My father never liked education in Western style, because he thought when I am educated in the Western style, I was going to be drinking alcohol, I would start smoking. This thing. Like many people who went to school usually fall into that category. But fortunately for me, I think it is God that saved me. My father, what he was expecting, I didn't go on that side. I didn't even smoke cigarette when I was in school. It was until later on that I started smoking cigarette, and afterwards I even quit smoking. So my father actually, I turned out when I finished school, he was very old. My salary and my education, the job that I got was how I was helping him with his family until he died. So he was definitely very pleased that he had done the action of putting me into school for employment and for me to be a better person.
And how was the first day for you in the United States of America? Is shock?
Wow. You see, going out of the Gambia was very nervous. I was very nervous on the day, and leaving my family, because I'm very attached to my family, particularly at a time when I had a son who was very close to me, who doesn't separate with me for 1 hour of a day. If I go out, he's always looking forward to meeting me. So the time I was leaving the Gambia, I was very nervous, and my heart was really full. I traveled from Gambia through Brussels in Europe, and from there to New York City. And I went with a tourist who had been coming to the Gambia from Holland almost 20 times. So he knows the Gambia very well, and through his friend, we were connected. And I went with him. It was thanks to his help that I was able to, he comforted me. But I was crying in the plane, because when I wanted to move out into the plane, it seemed like darkness. I didn't see anything. I think it's because of the mood I had. I was really, really very very nervous and reluctant. In fact, I wanted to stop going and come back home at the airport. So, but he was the one encouraging me. When I arrived in America also, it was a very long journey because I had to wait 7 hours at Brussels airport, and then from there to New York, and then I had to make a 14 hours bus drive from New York to Pennsylvania. So it was very long journey, very tedious. When I arrived in America, the person who lodged me, he's working 17, 18 hours a day. When I went into the house, he just called me and directed me about what I need to do to prepare food for myself and then eat and put the TV on. So it was very lonely, very desperate. I was using the little money I was having on telephone cards, trying to call home and so on. But it was definitely very lonely and very desperate experience for me. My first day was very, very tough, yeah.
But then
In fact,
after the first day,
after the first day, in fact, it took me 4 months, because the time I arrived in America, the schools have already started. I was late to leave the Gambia. So the schools have already started and I could not go to university. When I went, they interviewed me, they told me to go back to the Gambia until the next semester. I told them I don't have that kind of money to go back to the Gambia. So they asked me whether I can take care of myself. I said I know friends and relatives who will help me for feeding and for housing. And they said no problem. So during those 4 months before the next semester begins, it was very tough. I was very lonely and I find it difficult to get a job. In fact, I started going for temporary jobs, where you have agencies where you go and register early in the morning. They send you to a company to go and do some cleaning job or to go and do some menial job, carry in the warehouses, carrying boxes on your head and so on. It was very tough. But through that, I was able to raise some little money, which I was able to pay back the money I used to buy my ticket, because it was a loan given to me by a friend, a free loan, no interest, and I had to pay it back immediately. So when I went there during that 4 months, I was able to have these temp jobs and I was able to decide. And it was through this temp job that I got a permanent job, because my employer saw me, and then the way I was working, he was so impressed. He told me, do you have papers to work in America? I said no. He said, well, I will take a risk. I will employ you because I like you so much, and I will take it for granted that you have a paper, and then we'll employ you. And they employed me, and then I was there. I worked at that job for 5 years afterwards, and I brought so many other Gambians to the company who got employed there. But later on, I definitely liked the job there, and then I was liked by everybody. They used to call me Alex, because they say Alhagie is difficult for them, so they call me Alex. So being there, I adopted. I liked the job.
well, first of all, do you want how the Americans saw the people that come from Africa?
Well,
But because that trip, you went in 80s or 90s? Or
in 2001.
2001.
2001. Okay. I went in 2001, but the reaction of Americans towards Gambia, in fact, the reason why I was in fact employed was because for them it is amusing. It's a lot of fun for them, the jokes they make with me. They call me, there's a movie called Coming to America. They ask me, are you a prince? I say, yes, I'm a prince. Because in that movie, Eddie Murphy is a prince. And Eddie Murphy came to America to look for a wife. So they thought I am that. I am the prince. I said, yes, I'm a prince. So your father is a king? I say, yes. And so they like me. They ask me so many questions sometimes I feel upset. But it's my professor, who is a Nigerian, who is also in America, who spoke to me, who oriented me about all these things. He told me that in America here, you are going to face a lot of things. People will ask you silly questions. Somebody will ask me, what kind of hot dogs, what kind of sandwiches do you have in Africa? I tell them, elephant ball sandwiches, and they will laugh. So some will even ask me, what kind of toilet papers do you have in Africa? I say, we use banana leaves. And for them, they believe all these kind of things because they have no idea. They thought that we have lions and giraffes and they call it, you have lions and giraffes and shit in Africa. I say, yeah, we have a lot of lions. In fact, when you want to come to America, at the American embassy, there's a big lion. You have to fight with it. If you wrestle the lion, then they give you the visa. And they believe all this. So this show you how ignorant Americans are about the outside world. It is the media that tells them, and for them, all that they think about Africa is that we are very backward, we are climbing on top of trees and so on. Of course, we are backward, but not that the level of their thinking. So those were their reactions towards us, yes.
Wait a moment for the noise of the motorcycle. Thank you. Okay, we can continue. After all these years, do you think that Africa have a truly vision of America? You know, you told me about how Americans saw the people that comes to Africa, from Africa, but what about in the other direction? How Africans
See America.
and Europe, and do you have is a truly vision or is
Yeah, it's not the same. In fact, there is a myth in the minds of every African about people who come from beyond the seas, over the seas. They see everybody as very rich, as coming from a golden land where money is abundant. In fact, my sister is just from America. She's been away from here for 15 years. When she came, everywhere she goes to visit relatives, people expect that she come with millions. When she give out a $50 to anybody, they don't appreciate it. They think it is too small because they thought that she is having millions. And she's an ordinary woman working, struggling in America. So Africans' view of America is that America is the heaven on earth. So Americans, they put them in high value. On the other hand, Americans see Africans as the downtrodden of the earth. So this is the thing. There's an opposite view of Americans of Africans and Africans of Americans. The way they see us, in the opposite way we see them. So these are things that we, myself and my professor, who is a Nigerian, we have started a project to bring American students every year, about 30 students from America to come and spend the night. In fact, if they were coming up to Basori here, spending the night here, eating here, and so on, trying to see Africa actually in its right realm. In fact, some of them, I know one girl who was here at one time, and she later on got a job at the State Department. So some of these Americans that we are making an eye-opening for, trying to make them see Africa as Africa, and not just as nowhere. Some of them later on turn to have big jobs in America, and they become decision makers. So we think it is a worthwhile project to teach Americans about Africa. They need to know that Africa is not any bush place, but it is a real home for real human beings. Yes.
It's very interesting. That project that you told me is start the next year, or it's a long time project?
The project for bringing Americans here, yeah, that started since 2001.
Okay, but
until now, yeah, it is still on. Some even come here and they spend 3 months here in the Gambia here, and they go all over the countries trying to see people in the villages and in the towns. Yes.
Are the governments of Gambia or other countries in Africa working to inform the people about Europe and America and not golden land?
In fact, myself and my friend at University of the Gambia, we have started a program called Demystification of the West. Demystification of the West, we want to teach Gambian students about the realities in Europe and America. That life in Europe is not just like a cozy bed of roses where you just lie down and then heaven brings food into your mouth. No. It's a real struggle living in Europe and in America. You have to work hard, even harder than that you work here, in order to get even your basic commodities for food and shelter. Now, for them to see that what they work hard in Europe, if they do that here, they will be living better than here. So this guy is currently doing his PhD in Ohio University. He's a lecturer at the University of the Gambia. Myself and him, we are working on this project. Now we have conducted almost 4 different conferences with students, symposium, trying to teach them about the realities in Europe and America as we know it. My life, my experience in America, I tell them, and he's also telling them, as a student there, he has to be working in warehouses, not in offices, but in warehouses, carrying heavy boxes on his head in order to get $7 per hour. And that's what he accumulates in order to be able to have something back home when he comes back.
They know about the hard trip that is to arrive to Europe or America, because now many people goes walking and finish in Libya.
In fact, this is the backway syndrome. We call it here in the Gambia the backway syndrome. These are some of the things we even include. When we are doing this conference, we invite up to 3 people who have done the experience of backway and then back. Some, in fact, went up to Europe and then they were repatriated back to the Gambia. Their experiences on the seas. Sometimes when they tell you these experiences like a dream, it's not reality. Because the suffering that they go through, they will tell everybody that I do not advise you to carry on this kind of trip, because this is very risky and you have a likelihood of less than 50% to survive to go to Europe. And even if you get to Europe, it is not like 100% that you are going to make it in Europe. There are some who have already crossed, who are suffering, I'm sorry, and they have not made anything. So that's why those are people we include. We haven't gone through that process, but we have people who experience it in real life. They went through it. Then we invite them. They come and narrate their stories to the audience.
Very, very interesting and useful. Talking about that, what do you think about Europe's and America's policy of immigration right now? Because Europe now uses Turkey for wash his hands with Syrians, and America is Trump right now. So what do you think about it?
Actually, for immigration, I do not think it is the solution of our problems in Africa. Migrating out of Africa is not. Our problem in Africa, number 1, is our international trading relationship with Europeans and our own within ourselves, within African countries. How trade can be improved between Gambia and Senegal, Gambia and Guinea-Bissau, and so on. Those are the major problems that we need to tackle. Because in the past, we thought that escaping out of this country to go outside is the solution. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, I do not think that's the solution. Opening the way for us to go out of Africa is not definitely the solution for us. Our solution lies in developing the relationship between ourselves within Africa here, having better terms of trade with Europeans and Americans, so that what we sell, we determine the price. What we buy from them, they determine the price. But the actual scenario in the world right now, the politics of international trade, is that what we sell is raw material, and they are the ones who tell us we are offering this. And what we buy from them, they are the ones. So we have no say in the way we buy and the things we sell. These are the problems that we have, that is making us trying to leave this place thinking that that's the solution.
interruption. We are talking about the bad way and one of
The
problem-
policy against European
policy against-
immigration.
Can you tell me about more things about that? Your opinion? Because I think the first world is not fair with Africa in many ways. Sometimes or always appears that Africa is left behind of the international matters.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the major problem. The unfairness of trade between Africa and the rest of the world, particularly Europe and America. Africa is offered an unfair terms of trade in terms of all the production that we have done. And in terms of reindustrialization, we are behind. So Africa need to industrialize and need to have fair terms of trade with the rest of the world. And also Africans need to open up their borders between their different countries, so as to make Africa a home for people who live there and to like it, and not to start escaping through these dangerous sea routes to Europe, where half of the population will perish and the rest that even get there sometimes do not even succeed.
Do you know, or do you think that Africa has to work on these kind of problems as a collective, as a unit? You know, like a big African Union that fights for African problems. No?
Yeah, I think Africans themselves need to first start developing sentiments for getting themselves up there. You know, they will get assistance from the outside world. People will take them seriously when they see on their part that they are definitely progressing towards their own destiny. Because African integration has been said since 1957, when African countries, half of the African countries haven't even got their independence. Kwame Nkrumah was working on this, the United States of Africa. This was a dream he had until he died. And the OAU, which is Organization of African Unity, until it transformed into AU, which is African Union, until today we still have the same conditions. When you are traveling from the Gambia to Senegal here, our neighboring country, you face a lot of hassles. I was in America. You can travel from Pennsylvania to Houston, Texas. You can travel from Chicago to New York with no hassles, no border control. You will see the different number plates of different states. You can pass through Kentucky, you pass through Newark, and so all these places there are no hassles. But here, from here, just 8 kilometers outside here, you will have a hassle. So Africans need to integrate. Africans need to come together, need to appreciate each other, and need to love each other, and open up their borders and stop harassing each other. Because traveling through Africa is a nightmare. When you travel from here to Mali, you will pass through a lot of hurdles. You will be robbed of all your money and so on. So it is a very sad story for Africa because of the way we treat each other. Yes.
Do you think this dream is possible?
It is possible only when we start changing our attitudes.
I have another question about migration, and then we can move to political things. Because Gambia is one of the first countries in Africa that the people live, no? Or migrates.
People?
Go away. The people go away from Gambia. No? I think the five.
Gambia is the fifth country Africa that they are immigrants.
Where people from people.
Gambian people immigrate to other
European
countries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Even from this village, we have a lot of people who departed here and are outside war.
So which are the causes that force the young people to leave?
The causes that left the young people to leave is the hardship they face at their homes, And those hardships are caused as a result of so many things, combination of factors. One of these factors is lack of employment. People don't have employment and therefore they will have to go. People do not have money to buy food, basic things, they have to go. People who have not have enough money to buy things they want, they will have to go. People who have big dreams of building big houses and they don't have means to get it will have to go. So all these things are factors. But what causes all these are the problems that I have said about Africa's relation with the world in terms of unfair trades between Africa and other places, and due to low industrialization, Africans could not make it because when they produce something, it is determined at a price that they don't want to sell. They are buying things at prices that they don't want to offer. So they are being marginalized. They are put on the margin of development. Development is very hard to come here. So when you are living in a place where there is no development, you will definitely want to go outside. Those are the push factors. The pull factors are the fact that in Europe, the dollar is very powerful. The euro is very powerful. 1 euro is up to $50 a year. If you have 1,000 euro, you have $5,000 a year. $50,000 a year, and so on. So, and having $1,000 a year is just $1,000, and it's possible to have a 1,000 euro. So, $1,000 getting that here and getting 1,000 euro in Europe is almost at the same effort. If you are working, you have a good job in Europe, you can easily have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And when you send that back home, you can build a nice home. Those are the things that make people want to go out. They have factors that are pushing them out. There are factors that are pulling them from here to Europe.
And with this political change, are the people returned to Gambia?
Huh?
With this political change that
Gambia went through.
Are the people returned to Gambia or still going?
Yeah, exactly. This political change brought some people back home. They are working here because I have a friend that I miss since university days. There are people who left this country more than 20 years ago, about 30 years. They have now come back. The political change has brought freedom and democracy to this country. And freedom and democracy has made people to come back to their homes and live there, and also contributing towards making the place a better place. It was because I was shutting my mouth. I shut my mouth when I was here, because otherwise I would have been in jail or I would have been killed during the 22 years of brutal dictatorship in this country. I was here, but I shut my mouth. But people who don't want to shut their mouth, they have to run away from this country. So when the change took place, many people have come back. And I'm hoping that more people are going to come back because they find a very comfortable place to stay when they come back.
You were talking about Jammeh's days. How was these days? What his message is? Because I don't understand how the people support or could support them, or even now support Jammeh's messages. No? How was the days during Jammeh's dictatorship?
Jammeh's dictatorship is very complex. Jammeh was somebody who had definitely ruled the Gambia with an iron fist, tight fist. He definitely strangled the neck of the Gambians and in fact killed a lot of Gambians. But Gambia, there are people here, Jammeh was also using by the offer of money. He gave out money lavishly and he won the hearts and minds of some people because he was giving them very good life. There are half of the population that were living in hell, but a quarter of the population that were living in heaven. People who don't even know about the heat that was happening here. They were running in air-conditioned cars. They were living in air-conditioned houses. They were having a lot of money, and they could have maids and everything. So those people, for them, they are living in heaven because they are dancing to the tune of Jammeh. Jammeh was ruling the Gambia in a system called divide and rule. He divided the people. He made some people very rich that were coming out of nothing. He put people in high positions, very high positions, people who are non-entities, who don't know anything, who have no paper. Actually, those are why the people he went out with to Equatorial Guinea, most of them could not even have a job because they have no profession, they have no certificate, they have nothing. He just raised them out of nothing. So those were his staunch supporters who were ready to die for him. So that's why he had people who support him because he was giving them the carrot. But there are people who will always never support him because he had made them lose their brothers and sisters and fathers, and he had made people to lose their husbands and sons and so on. So those people will never like Jammeh forever. But Jammeh also brought a lot of development in this country when he came. He was able to secure money from outside, and he used the money to put up a lot of infrastructure. Prestigious projects took place. Some of them you can say they were white elephant projects. But actually he did that. So that's why he won the hearts and minds of some people, but he lost so many other people.
And were you here when Jammeh rise to the power?
I was here when Jammeh came to power, yes.
And how he was received from the international community?
Jammeh, when he came immediately, he was an unknown person. Nobody knew him. Nobody knew who he was. In fact, people were saying things that were not true, that are found to be not true, because they were saying he's from Ilyasa. The Jammeh family in Ilyasa, they are Mandinkas. Nobody knew he was a Jola. So it is at that point when he came, he was highly welcomed by everybody, because the president who was here for over 30 years, and he almost lost his usefulness. And so many people are eager to make him go. But there are people also enjoying under him who don't want him to go. So that's why when Jammeh came initially, he was highly welcome. And Jammeh was making big promises to the people. In fact, I remember one of his saying, he said, "We shall never become dictators in this country. We have come to develop this country. We have come to carry on transparency, probity, and accountability in this country." But with the development of time, we have realized that Jammeh has become the most opaque person. No transparency, no accountability, and no probity. So he has changed from what he promised the people to what he became later on.
And what Jammeh did with Gambian intellectuals? I mean, they support him because most of the dictatorship around the world, the first thing that dictatorship did is or press the intellectuals or give money to them to go with him,
Yeah.
or kill them. No?
Exactly. Jammeh used force and also used tactics in his political career. Jammeh was the one who developed people around himself. He developed a system of patronage. Patronage means having people who depend entirely on you for everything, and they support you, and they gather people to support against you, support around you. Also, these are the same people who are serving as kind of secret agents, because Jammeh has a mechanism of secret agents called NIA that are very feared by the people. they take information from the people and transfer it over there. So that even led to the disappearance of so many people. So people were afraid of their lives. So many people even think that Jammeh has supernatural powers. If you are in the polling box, because we in the Gambia here, we have secret balloting system. You are in the polling booth yourself alone. So when you go there, people think that Jammeh sees you. If you vote against him, he sees you and then you can be a victim. So those are some of the things that led to Jammeh's prolonged success. People were definitely voting for him because they thought that it is God that put him there. If it is his time, God will put him out of that place. So people believe in what we call the divine right of rulers. That's the cultural belief in this country. The Mandinkas, the Wolofs, and so on, they all believe that it is God who chooses a king, and when the God chooses you, it is nobody can stop you. Yeah.